email? What does it mean?
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or news.
The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Conversation is the oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas.
Forbes Books Radio presents The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett.
Welcome back to part 2 of my discussion with Cheryl Lim, Chief Human Resources Officer at Vertiv. We pick up our conversation with Cheryl discussing her strategies for attracting and retaining top talent, especially in today's tight labor market.
People want meaningful work and they want the opportunity to grow and develop. And yes, it is. The labor force has changed in a way where employers don't hold all the cards quite as much as they used to. I'm also finding that talent, the labor market or the talent out there, the lines between personal values and company values or what they enjoy in work, they're starting to get more blended than they used to as well. And so companies have to really think about that whole value proposition that they are giving, not just about the work that they do in the company, but also what they stand for, perhaps externally. Compensation is important. But without that purpose and value of the work itself, and then on top of that, the company values, you're not really going to retain or attract the best people for very long. And so I think it does start with that compelling value proposition, what you do as a company, what value you provide to the outside world, instilling that sense of pride in your employees is super important. And, here at Vertiv, we've got a lot to be proud of. We make the stuff that keeps the infrastructure running, make sure that the cloud keeps working. We keep the data centers running, which is so critical to the world in which we live today. So there's a lot to be proud of. And it's important that employees can make that connection to what you do, the work that they do, and then the value that it's bringing to the world at large. I think then you also have to make sure that you have the right development, assessment, and internal mobility programs to allow employees at their pace to move through the organization. And when you're thinking in terms of top talent, they typically want to grow and develop and feel like they're moving forward. And so you've got to get them involved in meaningful projects, but you've also got to unleash the ability for them to be able to see what's available to them through conversations with their managers, through good succession planning programs, great development programs, and really ensuring that we know who our talent are and that we're putting them in the right roles. Because that's good for us as a company too, right? Because we want to fill our significant roles with the best talent we can.
Right.
It meets both needs.
Yeah. I think you've said this a couple times now. I really like it. It's the people kind of matter, right? At the end of the day, people matter. And when I deal with teams, I often get asked the question of, well, how do I deal with this bad person that's the troublemaker? And it's kind of like when you've been sent to HR, it's usually not a good thing, right? But on the other hand, that's not been my experience. And it sounds like, and I'm sure you've had many horror stories in your roles, but my experience has been, no matter where I've worked in the world, people at the end of the day want to do a good job. I haven't met the person yet who came in with the attitude in the morning of, I want to do as little as possible today and take a big check home. Most people want to feel good about their work product, and they want to feel good about the company they're supporting. So I think that when you create the environment that they can thrive and grow in, that's going to happen.
That's true. It's certainly my experience. Of course, we have to have processes and systems in place to manage those situations where we don't have the right fit for lots of reasons. It could be the person's got disenfranchised. It could be just no longer the right type of place for them. There are lots of reasons. And we have to have the right systems and processes in place. But we also have to say, what are we doing to engage this employee first? You can't control people's attitude, but you can control the environment that allows them to be engaged as much as possible. And is it communication? Is it about the work they do? Are they not getting the right feedback? Are they just in the wrong role? And are they not feeling their voices being heard? There's lots of reasons why somebody may feel a little disengaged. And you at least have to start with the premise that, hey, there may be a reason here. What can we do to bring this along? At some point, hopefully you don't have endless patience on this. At some point you may have to make a tough call. But it is absolutely right to start with the premise that everybody is motivated to do the best work. And that's what my experience has been.
And I think that it's not really a topic for today, but one of the things I heard in one of my interviews that I liked was people don't always remember what you said, but they always remember how you made them feel when you said it. And so it's sometimes even when you have bad news, it's how you deliver the bad news. And I go back to what you said about the why, having them understand the why. So maybe you gave a bunch of different whys there as far as maybe it's just not this role's not a good fit anymore. So it's more about not just you're not going to work here anymore, but it's why, it's a helpful answer, I hope.
Yeah, I think giving very clear constructive feedback is critical, and it's uncomfortable. It's not an easy skill for anyone, and I will admit it's not always my favorite thing to do. One thing I found is helpful is that you tie it to the situation, and then you bring in examples of the situation. So if you're explaining why somebody perhaps didn't meet a particular goal, or they're not demonstrating a particular company behavior the way you want them to, don't just tell them, you don't do this, or you're no good, you're really bad at communication, or you're not a team player. That's not helpful. You've got to actually give them an example of what do you mean by that? What situation did you see where perhaps they didn't demonstrate what you were looking for? And maybe give them some ideas of this. If you'd have done it this way, maybe this would have been better. Or what do you think about this? And so you tie it to the situation. You don't make it personal. When you make it personal, it becomes personal, and you find that employees and people don't react very well to that. But if you tie it to a situation, it's hard to argue with that because you've given clear example of it.
Yeah. When you make it personal, it becomes personal both ways. Mm-hmm. So, that's right. That's the challenge. So in your role as a chief human resources officer, a company that operates, like you said earlier, with the fast-paced tech industry, and you're keeping the lights on for people to use Zoom and all the technologies out there, the data in the cloud. Yep. How do you strike a balance between focusing on the technical advancements and ensuring that the continuous development and empowerment of the people happens?
Well, certainly in the HR space, in my view, these things go hand in hand. I think it's absolutely important to have a very structured talent and performance management process and programs. So the sort of the actual what is very, very important. But in my view, the employee and the manager experience is so much more enhanced when you have great systems in place. The systems that allow perhaps the employee to get insights into what roles are available, or we can match people's skills to needs in the organization. It's able to really see what talent we have across the organization, or links our talent to learning and development opportunities. Now, do we have all these systems all running smoothly? No, but we are working on these. And I fundamentally believe the more you can enhance your systems capability, particularly around the talent space, but not just talent. I mean, it could apply to how you do merit planning and compensation planning. How easy is it for a manager to process some changes or submit things? If you can make it if you almost can give them the Amazon experience at work, it makes their life much easier. They're more they're more likely to want to do self-service, and they're more likely to spend more of the time on the conversations and talking to their employees and having to worry about all the administration of it. And so I do think developing the systems in line with the programs that you're also developing, and ensuring the two things go hand in hand so you can unlock the potential of that. It's critical. The other thing systems give you, it gives you data, right? It gives you the ability to analyze what you're doing and is it having the impact. Going back to the whatever you roll out, whatever change or program you roll out, is it doing what it's supposed to do? Having robust systems with accurate data inputs will give you really good data outputs to say, are we moving talent in the organization? Are we making our succession plans more robust? Are we getting more people through our development programs? And the data can give you that because the system's in place.
You may have already answered this next part. It's a same part of the same question, but are there practices or policies that you found to be particularly effective when you're trying to harmonize organizational growth?
Yes. I think, one thing that we have in place right now that I'm in the process of changing is, driving that balance between maybe things that get done locally or within a particular part of the business, that's fit for purpose, and at some point in time was needed or requested, and it served the purpose. But as you're growing as a global organization, and as you want to really drive talent mobility across the organization, the more you can standardize and harmonize your systems and your processes and your programs, the better. Now, I'll give you an example of this. We have some great development programs, particularly early career development programs, happening across different countries across the world. And some of those programs are giving visibility locally to some of that up and coming top talent. But we don't have visibility across the whole organization. And when you build them programs and development programs that then pull in talent from across all of your regions and every part of your business, not only do you connect that talent to each other, you give them visibility to senior leadership as well, and it makes them feel like, wow, this is quite something. You're also able to start matching some of that talent to opportunities that perhaps you wouldn't have done otherwise, because they would have been maybe a little bit more hidden from view. And so it is important that you allow some level of local autonomy that drives development and growth programs that meet local needs, local markets. But at the same time, you have a sort of a fundamental principle of how you're going to develop talent across the organization. And by you need to harmonize to a great extent to really do that. You capitalize on the programs that you have in place. You just get more visibility to the talent overall.
That's great. So I'm going to end with 3 questions that I like to ask everybody.
Okay.
And the first one is, are there any leadership principles that speak to you personally and guide your day-to-day behaviors?
Yeah, I have a couple of these. Now, I think consistency is very key, whether that's consistency on the message you give, consistency on what you're going to focus on, not constantly going back and forth and changing your mind on things, and then consistency on how you treat people around you. It goes maybe a little bit to fairness, but it's more than just being fair. It's just being predictable and consistent, and you do what you say you're going to do. I'm a big believer in leading by example. I try not to ask my team to do things that either I'm not willing to do or I'm not willing at least to get involved in and support. It's important that they see that, yes, there'll be times that I have to take a step back and delegate. I can't do everything, but I'm willing to help come in and solution with them. And that I send I hold the line for those around me. I don't tell people to do one thing and I go and do another. It's not really good. And then I think it goes back to the accountability as well. I think it's tied into a little bit by leading by example, but do what I say I'm going to do and expect the same from my team. And we always have multiple priorities that come and hit us all the time, but it's really important to build credibility that you are accountable for your actions.
Yeah, I think if I was working for somebody, consistency would be a big key for me. It doesn't have to be something I like. It could be something I don't like, but if I know it's going to always be that way, at least I can expect it, understand it.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm sure we've all worked for leaders that or for people who you're not always quite sure how to navigate. And I want at least to be seen as somebody who can be approached, and I am consistent in my message.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I have to think about this. I've had lots of good advice over the years, but I'll probably need to explain this a little bit. But I remember it was a fairly new role that I'd gone into, and I'd been asked to do a project that was a little bit out of my comfort zone. It was actually leading a head office move, and it was something that was in the course of your normal HR career, you don't normally get these things come along very often, so you don't get a lot of preparation. And I remember talking to a senior leader one day, and he was asking how the new role was going, and I said, no, it's great, but lots of new things. And he could see that I was desperately trying to be very optimistic about things. He says, now, Cheryl, you're not worrying, are you? You're not worrying about something. I said, well, a little, I feel a little bit out of my depth on something. He says, Cheryl, I don't want you to worry. He said, someone you know has the answer. And I thought about that for a minute, and he didn't really say much more about it, but it really stuck with me. And as I reflected on it, and I keep reflecting on it since, it goes back to some of the things I said earlier around how you build high-performing teams. It's like you surround yourself with diverse, highly capable people. You trust them to get things done. You realize that you can't do everything yourself, nor should you do everything yourself, but find the person who does know. Because there's bound to be someone either on your team or among your peer group or somewhere in the organization who can help you get done the things that are new to you or really outside of your experience level. And actually it was one of the most humbling pieces of advice, because you realize that actually you can't do everything yourself. And even though you think you've got to a level where you're supposed to be able to do everything yourself, but it was also a big relief to me. I suddenly realized, like, oh my goodness, I've got to stop fretting about this and just get the right team in place and ask for some advice. So it's really stuck with me for many years. That is one of the best pieces of advice I ever got.
I like that, because to me, I'm big on teams, and that's the beauty of a team, is it's no longer I have to get it done, it's we have to get it done, and how are we going to make this happen, as opposed to, how am I going to do it? Because I have my soft spots and my rough spots and my lack of data, but somebody else around me on my team should be able to fill that gap for me.
Right. Exactly.
What's the best book or article you've read recently, and what was the key takeaway?
I don't know that I have one. One thing I have been reading quite a lot of is around articles that have been exploring this change in the office environment and sort of the way we work. I think, one thing COVID gave us was a fundamental shift in people's attitudes to commuting, coming into the office, work itself, quite frankly, that companies have to navigate. And, I reflect on this. I listen, I sometimes go into HR forums and I talk to other colleagues, and I saw a lot that companies, particularly with the war for talent that was happening over the last couple of years, just sort of completely shifted the way that they did things to try and make sure that they could bring talent in. But at the same time, as a publicly traded company, nothing changed in the fact that companies are required to deliver value to their shareholders, right? And so you've got to balance the need to perform and deliver with a very different work environment and labor environment. And as a technology company ourselves, Vertiv, it fundamentally believes that we are better together. We collaborate better, we ideate better, we just work better when people are together in the office. Even in a global company, still bringing people together in like teams as much as possible is good for humans, but it's good for the company. And so I've been reading quite a lot of articles around how things seem to be shifting, and a lot of dilemmas that companies are facing. And some companies like us we're back in the office full time. And that requires, some different decisions to be made. But others are still maybe struggling with it a little bit. And so I don't know that I can call out one particular example, but just reading some of these insights from different companies as how they've navigated this is very interesting.
Well, you mentioned lessons learned earlier, and as you're talking about consistency of messaging and the consistency in how you handle things, I remember reading recently an article about that very topic on a company had said you could go remote, and then they changed their mind, and people had moved and done all kind of stuff, and it was causing a huge amount of backlash because the company was not consistent in their message, and it changed their mind, and now people had made life decisions on going one direction. And now it's how do you navigate back from that? So they certainly had some challenges.
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's important to recognize that people need flexibility from time to time. Life happens, but also what does the company need? And bringing those two things together. And we've gone through some growing pains with this, but it's also great to see some of the energy around the office as well, as people are sometimes just randomly meeting and solving something that perhaps they wouldn't have done before. It's great to see that.
I'm a huge proponent of face to face, and and physically face to face, not just through Zoom, because I think one of my reasons for that is what you just said, and that is the serendipitous meeting that solves a problem you didn't know you had wasn't going to be solved because they wouldn't meet in the hallway on Zoom, right? So
right.
it's
right.
I think you're a technology company. There are obviously technologies we should bring to bear when we can, but there's just something about the face-to-face interaction that's so powerful. The conversations that happen, even the ones that just happen on the way to get coffee.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Cheryl, this has really been great. I appreciate your time so much today, and thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you. It's been great to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to The Conversation. To find out more about Clint, go to clintonmpaget.com and pick up Clint's book, How Teams Triumph, Managing by Commitment, at Amazon. The Conversation with Clinton M. Paget is a production of Forbes Books.